And next up, we have DAO Tooling with Niche. Niche, are you there?
Yep. Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome. And you're with 1KX, is that right? Or who are you
Um,
representing?
I'm with 1KX and I'm also a contributor at Metagamma Delta.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to meet you. Please take it away.
Sure. Let me share my screen here. Okay. Can you see the screen here?
Yes, yes, I can.
Awesome. Cool. Well, hi. I'm Niche, and I do platform and research and content at 1KX. We're an early stage crypto fund. I'm also a contributor at Metagamma Delta and Goblin Sachs. And in the past, I was doing some smart contract development over at Upstate Interactive and Mochi, which is a social club. So today, like we're gonna explore, some of like the DAO ops verticals and tooling that has come up over the past 2 years to address these different verticals. Um, some takeaways and then just like the general DAO tooling ecosystem map. Um, so, I mean, I think like most of you probably have heard of these terms before. DAOs have been dubbed like group chats with bank accounts, internet native communities. But at the end of the day, it's just like people pulling resources together and allocating it towards the shared goal, right? So whether that's to build products, to collect and play, to publish, to invest, to give grants, which is what MGD is focused on. And then service DAOs are also rising at the moment, and also just to hang out, right, in social DAOs. Like DAO tooling has been like a budding crypto vertical over the past 2 years with the rise of internet native organizations. But the challenges basically boil down to like how do we lower the barrier to meaningful contributions, right? How do we maintain operational efficiency as we decentralize, and then also how do we coordinate decision making at scale? So right now, we went from this initial core team to like the first kind of casual contributors, and more DAOs are entering the group now where they have to kind of think more about like organizational design and like coordinating themselves into working groups that's like working towards like different milestones of the DAOs and like different operational verticals. So we've seen like committees and work streams pop up now, and whether that's like core product development or community management, and this is like different between every DAO, right? So some DAOs might have be focused on one or more of these things more than others, but they all have a treasury, they all have some sort of a product, or some sort of initiative to direct towards their shared goal, right? So the main difference between like DAOs and traditional organizations is that there's this idea of like distributed authority and ownership, and like decisions are pushed to the edges. So here we see examples from like Yearn, Index Co-op, and Nexus Mutual, where people like these working groups have spun up organically to kind of address the different efforts of the DAO, right? So these, instead of like monolithic departments, these groups are typically small and they have decision making within a constrained domain, right? So they're like members make proposals to form different working groups. They're usually like time bound, have different KPIs, goals, and budgets. They're held accountable to the DAO, and they can wind down and consolidate with others once the goals are met. So in terms of like operations, like there's tooling that's emerging to facilitate this kind of this activity within the DAO, right? To be for these working groups to form more flexibly. This is another example with Shapeshift. So like in terms of frameworks, like we've seen this kind of transition from really monolithic one size fits all kind of DAO frameworks to really modular and extensible frameworks where people can plug and play depending on what the DAO needs are at a certain time. And they're upgradable, so they might like sunset a specific feature and like migrate to another piece of tooling when it makes sense. And then working groups should have like autonomy over the domain that they're responsible for, right? And like the tools they pick. So so like we've seen this like model working with where it's like very multi-sig based, and like people in the different working groups can set permissions on the multi-sig based on what reputation or capabilities they want each member to have. So instead of like having a binary like member or non-member of a DAO thing, they could be like members or non-members of a working group, and then have like roles-based permissions that way. So each pod here of Orca DAO is a multi-sig that's like governed by the larger multi-sig, and like different pods can govern each other as well. So there's like different structures that you can that safe multi-sigs like safe can handle to better facilitate these sorts of like flexible organizational structures. And they can wind down, and to enter into a pod is kind of like a key card, right? So you are minted like membership NFTs of a pod, and then using that NFT, you have certain decision making powers within the working group that you're eligible to be a member of. And then in terms of extensibility, DAO House has done a really good job of, like building this marketplace of like boosts to the Molok DAOs. So, in V2, we've seen like, the minion that like governs the like external smart contracts for you to do like arbitrary smart contract execution, and also things like manage like Discord notifications and discourse forum to integrate with the other coordination tools that DAOs are using today. And then, something that I'm really excited about that's come out is Molok V3, which some of the that makes the Molok DAO a lot more kind of interoperable with the other protocols within the ecosystem, right? So the shares and roots are now ERC20 tokens, which means composability and compatibility with other protocols that are out there. The DAO can vote to toggle transferability of these tokens on and off. And then you can, like approve, or you can have these things called shamans, which have basically special permissions that is allowed to do certain things without having the DAO vote for it, right? So that kind of adds a lot more flexibility that way. The governance parameters are now adjustable. So before with V2, these are kind of like set once, and you can't like adjust it afterwards upon summoning the DAO. But now the governance parameters like voting period, grace period are now adjustable if the DAO deems it necessary. You can now do bulk transfers without doing like token whitelisting to kind of basically, like in Molok V2, you had to kind of do proposals to whitelist assets that the DAO can hold and send, right? So now like the proposals are multi-send compatible. So when you're doing funding proposals, the DAO can now send like multiple like tokens at once. And it's based on like Gnosis Safe as a treasury, right? So now it supports all on-chain assets. It facilitates upgrades from a multi-sig to a DAO. So a lot of DAOs today just spin up a multi-sig and kind of have admins in the beginning, but when they want to decentralize, they can do so with Gnosis Safe, Molok V3, and Safe's Zodiac kind of extension pack toolkit that they have to integrate with other systems. So Molok V3 in action, like I highly recommend people give like Hydra Ventures white paper a read. So they're going to be launching, with Molok V3, where so Hydra is a fund of funds investment DAO, and they're launching as a Molok V3 that gives basically members like all the benefits of a Molok DAO, right? So sovereignty over the funds that they put in, but a lot more flexibility with things like like share accounting. They can still rage quit, and they integrate with like multiple Gnosis Safe wallet to kind of handle their operations, right? So when they're making investments, they're keeping funds in a hot wallet, and then the harvest wallet is where they keep basically the returns of the fund, and then they can distribute profits from this wallet in the end. And then, so in terms of like value creation, right? So a lot of these tasks are the same as in traditional organizations, but the core opportunity, the core difference is that the opportunity to contribute is wide open, right? So it comes with its own challenges. Decentralized doesn't mean leaderless. Instead, like more people are empowered to take initiative. So the open questions are like, how do we surface the right opportunities to the right people, right? And how do we quantify, incentivize, and properly reward these value creation? And how do we foster trust through roles and reputation systems? So we're seeing a lot of like, onboarding tools right now coming up, bounties and quests that issue things like non-transferable badge tokens to kind of attest for your contribution to the DAO. Discord roles are now becoming NFTs. Forum tiers are now being represented through tokens, and like people are using both on-chain and off-chain data to tie to a specific individual that they can then like plug and play into different communities as an attestation to the work that they've contributed to different organizations, right? So we've seen bounty platforms like Gitcoin, Coinbase, Rabbit Hole are still around. And then like a lot more contribution and reputation management type things, right? So proved allows you to kind of claim that you did a thing, and then someone in the DAO can basically sign off on it and say that you did it. Karma, again, is like it looks at the different activities that you could do that counts as a contribution to the DAO, and grants you different like tiered access to have different rights based on your contributions. Discord roles are still being widely used. Disco is an identity and also reputation management protocol that allows you to like aggregate your reputation from different sources, and then take that anywhere with you and like selectively reveal your data as different apps ask for it. So it's like privacy preserving is a big theme now, where like the individuals still has control over the data of where they've contributed to in the past. But then the DAO can, like, once that's revealed to the DAO, like they can see that this individual is credible or eligible to do the task that they can do, right? So this thing at the top here is like the types of things that you might want to attest to, like your forum activity, the publications that you've done, GitHub commits, which should also be integrated with source cred, dashboards that you built, and voting activity and things like that. So all these data sources are now like kind of being captured by these reputation management systems. So I think like badging and credentialing is going to come up. Like that's a wave that I've seen come up over the past few months. That kind of goes beyond like token gating, right? So in terms of compensation after they've kind of proven their contributions, it can be, of course, in ETH stablecoins, governance tokens, streamed, bulk distributed, or voted on via governance proposals. So this is kind of like the different paths that the DAO can take in terms of how they want to contribute their members, right? So this is an example of just like a salary template that that one DAO has. So it's the potential members can kind of make a case for what level they think they are, and then they can transparently be compensated that way. Sablier, Superfluid, streaming protocols, where people can get paid by the minute. Then you can do like bulk distribution through things like Disperse, and then Parcel, Maltus are more like accounting tools that helps the DAO kind of look over like higher level spendings and things like that. And then so I mean the current challenges are that like there's like a lack of standards to quantify and qualify value creation, right? Which kind of creates friction and oversight when trying to compensate contributors. So there's things like Coordinate that pushes these decisions to the edges, and you're actually rated by your peer about how effective you were, instead of like some top down like manager that that has to like make a decision on how everyone is compensated. And then lack of HR and benefits and payroll, and like the uncertainty around taxes for 1Ks and things like that is being solved by groups like Opulus, which basically, so Opulus, I know they're presenting here, so I think they'll present it much better than how I am here. But basically, they're an employment collective that decouples the benefits from the employer and gives it back to the employee, right? So it shouldn't be that your benefits and pay and HR benefits and things like that stays with the employer when you leave the organization, right? It should be with the individual. So Opulus decouples benefits from employers and keeps it with the employee so that they can retain those benefits when they move from one DAO to the next. So at Metagamma Delta, we used Govern to kind of quantify the types of contributions, right? So as a DAO, we kind of came up with this list of like potential things that members can do that we would deem valuable, and then we assign points to them. And what they would do is kind of self-report what they did, and then they would give a score, and that would kind of give us this concentric circle kind of orbit map of who is most involved in the DAO. And using these contribution graphs, we can make the decisions about when we want to fund trips, for example. We sent a few people to Metacamp 2 months ago, so that decision was kind of made based on like how active you were in the DAO, right? So like this sort of system can really quantify and make transparent why those kind of like how we came to those sorts of decisions. And then of course coordinate, it allows your peers to assign you basically like points based on how much value they think you contributed within a given time period, right, or epoch. So this is like a screenshot, like a real screenshot from what we did at Goblin Sachs. So we use Coordinate, and so people can like give you feedback about like what they think you did well, how you can improve. And so it gives you kind of qualitative information and feedback from your peers. And then these give tokens can then be translated pro rata into whatever compensation methods that you have. So it could be whatever Goblin Sachs tokens or stablecoin, or however the DAO wants to convert the tokens. In terms of decision making, right, we went from share based on chain voting, and then because of gas costs, we went to like signal voting, and then the signal voting kind of informs the admin multisig, but that of course doesn't guarantee on the execution of the votes. So things like Snapshot V1, right, get a lot of slack for not being like truly decentralized, because the voters actually don't have any like say over the actual execution. Again, and we did signal voting and then on-chain voting. So we did like a temperature check. So people like Uniswap use processes like these where votes are more meaningful because it's more tied to the signal, but then it's time consuming, right? Because each of these phases take like 2 weeks. So now we're going kind of from signal voting to more like on-chain voting with some multisigs, where we're like delegating funds and executive authority to working groups, and then experts can perform their task more efficiently, and like not everyone has to vote on every decision, right? So we went from kind of these comprehensive DAO frameworks with built-in voting to really more like modular signal voting that translates to on-chain execution. So Snapshot X is basically a snapshot on Starkware where people can vote, but that then executes something on the main chain. So this is like how they're solving for like signal voting not really translating into execution thing. So and then Safe is again like still the go-to multi-sig for the ecosystem in terms of treasury management. And then so like general patterns, we're seeing delegation of executive power, using things like Zodiac's reality module, we can take off-chain sentiment and kind of translate it into on-chain execution. So even though people are voting on Snapshot, or like even polls on Discord can be like tied to the Reality ETH kind of oracle, and then inform on-chain execution that way. And then if anyone sees anything wrong, they can do dispute resolution through protocols like Kleros and Aragon Court. So yeah, there's a lot of options for people to choose from, which is like the advantages of composability, right? And like having these tools work together instead of like being a walled garden, like we see with the first generation frameworks. So in terms of treasury management, we're seeing a lot of accounting tools pop up, whether that's things like Parcel, CoinShift, Utopia. So like DAOs really need like these accounting and reporting tools, right? It makes it easier to audit and also do risk management for the DAO. So instead of like holding tokens and like not knowing where everything is, there's like treasury management is becoming more professionalized through like treasury advisory services, right? So this is like an early version of Llama, which basically gives DAOs a transaction kind of financial statement for their spendings, right? So it makes their treasury a little bit more human readable, and to see what they're spending money on. But since then, they've transitioned into more of like a treasury advisory, like full stack, like service DAO that helps DAOs make decision on their treasuries and assess the results over time, right? So they help them develop strategies, design liquidity programs, on-chain indices, and of course, like doing things like financial reports to give the DAO like really a clear idea of how they're doing. And then they're also developing frameworks like stablecoin diversification, liquidity incentives, and token swaps. Yeah, and they actually like work actively with the DAOs that they're working with in terms of like governance. So they submit a governance proposal to a to make a decision on their treasury, and kind of like help the community walk through that process. So it's not just tooling anymore, but it's also kind of a full stack kind of professional service to do treasury management. And then something that's also popping up now is like inter-DAO tooling, right? So DAOs are really interconnected and interdependent, but like so thus far they've kind of been operating as like separate islands, right? Due to a lack of tooling services and shared vision. So in the future, we'll see DAOs interact through things like joint ventures, token swaps, co-farming, co-LPing. So they need kind of polycentric frameworks for this. So this is a really cool piece of research from Curve, which gives like some examples of how DAOs might collaborate. And then we'll need tools for this, right? So an example of this now is things like negotiation protocols, like Prime Deals, which helps DAOs kind of host and facilitates negotiations like Token Swap, right? So this is kind of a screenshot of like how the Token Swap platform is working right now, but in the future they'll have a platform for them to negotiate, joint ventures and co-LPing and things like that. And then in terms of like, lastly, in terms of front end analytics, we kind of want an Etherscan of DAOs, right? So to make DAO activity human readable. So in addition to the treasury management, we want kind of transparency around like governance. So, to see things like top advocates, to kind of give an idea of like what kind of a community it is, right? If you see a DAO with a lot of like VCs as token holders, it might be different than some like a community with a lot of individual delegates. Sorry, I think I'm getting pinged. Oh no. Yeah, and then you can see things like activity, governance, participation of individual members as well. Yeah, and then so you'll see. So and this is So prime rating is a group of analysts basically making qualitative and quantitative like analysis of different DeFi protocols, right, and giving them a rating. So that's kind of another sort of analysis tool that you can use to kind of evaluate a protocol. They give an aggregate score as well as like this really comprehensive report of how they arrived at those decisions. So yeah, as a summary, so we went from like traditional organizations to kind of like DAOs 1.0, which is kind of token holders voting for everything. So that led to a lot of voter apathy, slow due to disorder and no specialization. So now being, more kind of structured, more fluid working groups of token holders that flexibly gains access rights to different things within the DAOs and like accrue their reputation that they can port from one organization to another. It's an emergent hierarchy based on meritocracy and just adapting really quickly. And yeah, like tooling wise, it's very like modular, extensible. Decision making is going from like off-chain voting to on-chain execution to save people on gas, but then also maintaining the decentralized kind of aspect of it. And then we're getting a lot more transparency thanks to these aggregators and service DAOs that is performing, analysis services on these DAOs and sharing it with the public. So I know that was like really, really fast. I tried to keep it in under half an hour. Usually this takes me like 45 minutes, but I just wanted to make sure I covered everything and left room for questions.
Yeah, that was an amazing overview of different tools. As you say, you covered a very wide range of tools. I think my most impressive feature set that we covered in tool set was actually what's in Molok V3 and just how far we've come from 2.5 to 3. So I think as we were going through that one definitely stood out because it removed a lot of the minion features and brought those features in app. So it felt like it was cleaning up a lot of the multiple tools that we had to kind of integrate into Molok.
Yeah.
What is a place that people can go to see the prime rating? I think that having that trust layer that evaluates and provides rationale for the code, the documentation, security is really an important part of communicating what people are doing. Where can people go to view the prime rating information?
Yes, so it's should I share this in the chat?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so that's their website.
Okay.
And all these reports are public. So if you so I think that links to the dashboard, but if you click into any one of them, you can there's a technical report and there's a fundamental report. So there's technical analysts doing research on the code and the documentation, and then there's another set of analysts doing like tokenomics things.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Obviously, there's no one tool for an organization, and you definitely outlined a lot of different things and how decision making can be made effectively with different organizations and with different tools. What are out of all of these kind of tools right now? Is there one of them that's kind of emerging that you really like to use for your daily and kind of organization structure? Is there one that you tend to prefer?
So out of so I've had experience with a lot of these. Safe, definitely. I'm excited to try playing around with Molok V3. That's for sure. Just to see the capabilities there, because we've been on MGD has been on like DAO House since the beginning, right? And we've kind of like grown with them as as we went through like version 1, version 2, and now version 3. And it again, like it just like answers all of our needs. So yeah, excited to play around with that. DAO House is still our go-to. And then other than that, yeah, safe. And yeah, I only started reading prime rating reports fairly recently, so I'm excited to kind of dive into those reports and kind of see how the analysts are looking at DeFi protocols using their framework.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, I think having the analytics and the analysis that experts are doing to help communicate the effective projects and where value is actually being created is a way that will remove a lot of the people having to tell you trust me, right? You go to the analytics, let the people that are accumulating the data tell you who to trust. And we saw on the metaverse things like Atlantis World that kind of bring together the UIs and make them fun to engage with these different tools. So I think the people that are playing with them and experimenting and breaking them and using them are
Yeah.
what will drive innovation. So thank you so much for sharing all these tools. Looking over them, the one that I've been really impressed with lately is also Sobel. Have you had a
Oh,
chance to?
okay. Yes, yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely recommend that for the overall organization and goal planning. There's a ton of different things that it does as well. So thanks so much for sharing. And yeah, if there are any other links that you'd like to share, please drop them and I'll share them in the Discord chat as well.
I can share the slides actually.
Okay, yeah, that'd be amazing.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Nish.
Awesome.